My friends, let me tell you something very important. Life isn't painful because of what happens outside. Life becomes painful because of what begins to happen inside. A small mistake becomes a disaster. A small delay becomes a failure. A small comment becomes a personal insult, not because it is that big, but because our negative thinking magnifies it. Our mind has two buttons, one creates peace, the other creates panic. And sadly, many people are pressing the panic button all day long without even knowing it. But imagine a life where your mind becomes calm, clear, confident. Imagine a life where instead of overthinking, you overcome. Instead of doubting, you decide. Instead of reacting, you rise. Today, I am going to share with you the real, practical, life-changing ways to kill negative thinking, not temporarily, but forever. Let's begin. My friends, the biggest problem with negative thinking is not the thought itself. It's that we don't even realize when it begins. Your mind speaks to you every second, sometimes softly, sometimes loudly, sometimes truthfully, and sometimes completely misleading you. But here's the catch. Most people are not even aware that their mind is talking to them. It is like walking with a friend who keeps whispering in your ear, "You can't do it. You're not good enough. People don't like you. What if this goes wrong?" But because you've been hearing that voice for years, you start believing it is you. Let me tell you a small story. A man once went to a teacher and said, "My mind troubles me too much. I don't know what to do." The teacher smiled and said, "Sit quietly for 10 minutes and just listen." The man listened, and he was shocked. He said, "My mind is constantly talking. It doesn't stop." The teacher replied, "Now you have found the real problem. Not the world outside, but the world inside. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. You cannot fix a leaking pipe unless you first see the leak. You cannot clean a dirty room unless you first see the dirt. And my friends, you cannot stop negative thinking unless you first see the thought. Awareness is like switching on a light in a dark room. The darkness didn't go anywhere. You simply turned on the light, and you could finally see what was hiding in the shadows. The same is true for your mind. Negative thinking thrives in unconsciousness. When you become aware of a negative thought, its power immediately decreases. So how do you become aware? You pause, you breathe, you observe. The moment a negative thought arrives, instead of reacting emotionally, you step back and ask, where is this thought coming from? Is this old fear speaking? Is this my insecurity talking? Is this the truth, or just a story my mind is creating? When you ask these questions, something magical happens. You move from being inside the thought to watching it from the outside. From the driver's seat, negativity controls you. But the moment you shift to the observer's seat, you control the negativity. Remember this: awareness is not fighting with your thoughts. Awareness is simply recognizing your thoughts the moment they appear. Because a thought you can see clearly is a thought you can change. A thought you notice is a thought you no longer obey. A thought you observe loses its power to control your emotions. My friends, your inner dialogue is the script of your life. Change the script and you change the story. But the first step is awareness, because you cannot silence the voice in your mind until you first hear it consciously. And once you master this art, negative thinking will no longer sneak into your life quietly. You will catch it, you will confront it, you will rise above it. Awareness is your first weapon to kill negative thinking forever. My friends, One of the greatest misunderstandings human beings live with is this: we believe every thought that comes to our mind. But let me tell you something very honestly: your mind is not always telling the truth. In fact, many times your mind is simply telling you a story created from your fears, your past hurts, your insecurities, and your assumptions. Imagine a small child who sees a shadow on the wall and believes it's a monster. The monster looks real, the fear feels real. The heartbeat becomes faster, the body freezes, the anxiety rises. But the shadow was only a shadow. There was no monster. This is exactly what your mind does. It shows you shadows and convinces you they are monsters. It shows you possibilities and tells you they are guaranteed outcomes. It shows you fears and convinces you they are facts. Our mind says, people are judging you. You will fail. You are not worthy. You don't deserve happiness. What if everything goes wrong? But ask yourself, is any of this proven? Is any of this factual? Or is your mind predicting the worst case scenario because it is trained to protect you by scaring you? Your mind loves to create stories, and negative thoughts are often the result of your mind protecting you, over analyzing everything, and assuming danger where there is none. Just because a thought feels powerful doesn't mean it is true. Just because a thought feels urgent doesn't mean it is right. And just because a thought has been repeating for years doesn't mean it deserves your obedience. Let me share a simple example. If someone tells you once that you are not talented, that is their opinion. But if your mind keeps telling you daily, maybe they were right, maybe I'm not capable, maybe I shouldn't even try, that is not truth. That is conditioning. And the saddest part, we believe our mind more than we believe our potential. Your mind has learned to exaggerate negativity because the brain is wired for survival. Survival means detecting threats, even imaginary ones. So your brain will always highlight the danger, but it will not highlight your strength unless you train it. You have to learn to look at a thought and say, wait, hold on, just because my mind is saying this doesn't mean it's reality. This one sentence can save you from so much pain. When a negative thought appears, take a pause and ask yourself, is this thought based on facts or fears? Is this my intuition speaking, or my insecurity trying to scare me? Is this the truth, or just an old wound being replayed? This small gap, this small moment between the thought and your reaction is where your freedom lives. If you can learn to doubt your doubts, question your fears, and challenge your negative interpretations, you will regain the inner control that negativity stole from you. Your thoughts are guests. Some guests are pleasant, some unpleasant, but none of them are permanent unless you invite them to stay. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which thoughts to accept, which thoughts to ignore, and which thoughts to release. Once you understand that your mind is a storyteller, once you stop treating every thought as a command, once you start saying, this might not be true, the grip of negative thinking begins to loosen. Slowly, steadily, powerfully. And that, my friends, is how you take back control from the stories your mind has been telling you for years. My friends, one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your mind is learning how to change the question you ask yourself. Most people live in fear not because life is dangerous, but because their mind is always asking the wrong question. What if something goes wrong? This one question has destroyed dreams, relationships, opportunities, and confidence. People don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because fear convinces them they shouldn't even begin. When your mind keeps whispering, "What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I make a mistake? What if things don't work out?" What you're really doing is rehearsing disaster in your imagination. And where attention goes, energy flows. The more you think of something going wrong, the more your mind, your emotions, and even your body prepare for the worst. Let me tell you a small story. A man stood at the edge of a river. He wanted to cross it. The water was calm, the path was clear, but he stood there for hours thinking, "What if I slip? What if the water gets deeper? What if I drown? What if I can't make it?" A stranger walked by and asked, "Why aren't you crossing?" The man replied, "I am imagining every possible way I can fail." The stranger smiled and said, "My friend, your fear has already drowned you long before the river ever could." That is how most of us live. We drown in imaginary problems before real problems even appear. But here is the beautiful truth. The mind that asks, "What if it goes wrong?" can also ask, "What if it goes right?" The same mind, the same brain, the same imagination, but a different direction. And that small shift changes everything. Imagine asking yourself, "What if I succeed? What if people support me? What if this becomes the best decision of my life? What if the opportunity waiting for me is bigger than the fear stopping me? What if things turn out even better than I imagine?" You see, when you ask positive questions, your brain begins to search for positive possibilities. Your focus changes. Your energy changes. Your confidence rises. Your courage wakes up. The mind is like a torch. It will only illuminate the direction you point it toward. If you point it toward fear, you will see danger everywhere. If you point it toward possibility, you will see opportunities everywhere. Let me give you a simple example. A student going for an exam can think, "What if I fail?" and walk into the exam hall with stress, fear, and low confidence. Or the same student can think, "What if I pass with great marks?" and suddenly the mind becomes calm, focused, and stable. One thought creates panic. The other creates preparation. The thought you choose determines the result you experience. Remember, your brain is not trying to destroy you, it is trying to protect you. But sometimes protection becomes overprotection, and overprotection becomes limitation. Your job is to gently guide your brain toward possibility, not panic. When you begin changing your inner questions, your outer world begins to transform. You start seeing solutions instead of problems, strength instead of weakness, growth instead of fear, hope instead of doubt. And over time, this becomes a habit. Every time a negative "what if" arises, you replace it with a positive one. It becomes automatic, it becomes natural, it becomes powerful. Because the truth is simple. Your life goes in the direction of your strongest thoughts. If your strongest thoughts are fear, your life shrinks. If your strongest thoughts are possibilities, your life expands. So the choice is yours, not in what happens, but in what you choose to focus on. When you learn to ask, "What if it goes right?" you stop being scared of life, and you start being excited about it. And that single shift, my friends, is one of the biggest steps toward killing negative thinking forever. My friends, one of the most liberating truths you can learn in life is this: you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are events happening in your mind, just like clouds moving in the sky, just like waves rising in the ocean, just like cars passing on the road. But the problem is, we get attached to those thoughts. A negative thought arises, and immediately we say, "This is me. This is my reality. This is my truth." And that attachment gives the thought a power it never originally had. Imagine sitting on the side of a road. Cars are passing by. Some are noisy, some smooth, some fast, some slow. You watch them come and you watch them go. You don't chase them. You don't jump in front of them. You don't try to stop them. You simply observe. But now imagine if you suddenly started believing every car on the road belonged to you. You would panic. You would run behind every vehicle. You would exhaust yourself trying to control them. This is exactly what happens when we attach ourselves to every thought. Negative thoughts cross your mind all the time, but only when you grab them, hold them, analyze them, and give them emotional meaning do they begin to affect you. Let me share something very simple. A monk was once asked, "How do you stay so peaceful? Don't you ever get negative thoughts?" The monk smiled and replied, "I get them every day. The difference is, I don't invite them for tea." This is the art of detachment. A thought comes, you observe it. You don't run toward it. You don't run away from it. You don't fight with it. You don't fear it. You simply say, "There is a thought. Not my thought. Not my truth. Just a thought." You become the witness, not the prisoner. When you detach from a thought, you immediately reduce its emotional weight. What hurts us is not the thought, it's the emotional storm we create around that thought. Detach, and the storm dissolves. Think of a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the mud remains floating, the water stays dirty. But if you place it down and stop disturbing it, the mud slowly settles, and the water becomes clear on its own. Your mind is exactly the same. Negative thoughts are like mud. If you panic, react, overthink, or fight with them, they become stronger and more visible. But if you simply observe them without attachment, they settle on their own. Another way to understand this is with the sky and clouds. Your mind is the sky, your thoughts are the clouds. Some days the sky is clear, some days the sky is cloudy. But no matter how heavy the clouds are, the sky is never damaged. It remains vast, untouched, peaceful. You are that sky. Your thoughts may come and go, positive or negative, light or heavy. But the real you, the witness within, remains unhurt. The moment you detach and say, "This is just a thought," you create space. Space between you and the negativity. Space where peace can enter. Space where clarity can grow. Space where emotions can soften. Detachment does not mean ignoring thoughts. It means not surrendering to them. It means recognizing that a thought is an event, not an identity. A passing moment, not a permanent truth. A visitor, not the owner of your mind. When you master this art, negative thinking loses its sharpness. It stops controlling your mood, your decisions, your confidence, your peace. You no longer get overwhelmed by what your mind creates. Because now you understand thoughts happen in you, but they are not you. And once you learn to watch your thoughts instead of becoming them, my friends, you rise to a level of inner strength and calmness that negativity can no longer touch. My friends, your mind is a garden, and your environment is the soil in which that garden grows. No matter how strong a seed is, it cannot grow in poisoned soil. No matter how beautiful a flower is, it cannot blossom in darkness. And no matter how positive your intentions are, if your environment is negative, your thinking will naturally follow the same direction. We often blame ourselves for being negative, but we forget to look at the spaces we sit in, the people we listen to, and the atmosphere we breathe every day. If you plant a lotus in clean water, it will rise beautifully above the surface. planted in sewage, and it still tries to grow, but its surroundings start affecting its fragrance. Now imagine your mind as that lotus. It wants to rise, it wants to grow, it wants to stay peaceful. But if your environment constantly feeds you negativity, fear, anger, gossip, jealousy, competition, or noise, how can your mind remain untouched? Let me share a small story. A man once complained to a wise teacher, "No matter what I do, my mind becomes negative. I try so hard to stay positive, but it doesn't work." The teacher took him to a quiet lake early in the morning. The water was calm, the birds were singing, the air was fresh. The teacher said, "Sit here for a while and just breathe." After a few minutes, the man felt peaceful. The teacher asked, "Did you do anything?" The man said, "No, I just sat here." The teacher replied, "Exactly. Sometimes your mind isn't the problem. Your environment is. Just like that man, many of us are trying to fix our mindset without fixing the places and people influencing that mindset. If you sit with people who complain all day, you will start complaining. If you sit with people who only talk about problems, your mind will drown in problems. If you sit with people who gossip, your mind will become polluted. If you sit with people who criticize everything and everyone, you will slowly begin to adopt their lens of pessimism. But sit with people who dream, you will start dreaming. Sit with people who speak kindly, your heart will soften. Sit with people who uplift you, you will begin to rise. Sit with people who see solutions, your mind will become clearer. Sit with people who live with gratitude, your negativity will fade. You see, your environment is not just around you, it enters inside you. Every conversation you hear, every voice you listen to, every energy you sit with, every atmosphere you expose yourself to, becomes food for your mind. If a person keeps eating junk food, can they stay healthy? Of course not. Then how can we expect our mental health to remain strong when we are constantly consuming mental junk? Your environment is shaping your thoughts more than your willpower ever can. You might be mentally strong, but no one is strong enough to remain unaffected by a toxic environment forever. Even a candle cannot stay lit in a storm, but put the same candle in a peaceful room and it glows beautifully. Your mind is that candle. So ask yourself, where do I spend most of my time? Do the people around me uplift me or drain me? Do my surroundings bring peace or pressure? Do I live in a space that nourishes my soul or suffocates it? Sometimes the solution to negative thinking is not fighting the mind, it's changing the environment. Go sit in nature. Spend time with people who inspire you. Read books that feed your mind. Watch things that educate your heart. Create a space in your home where you feel calm. Clean your surroundings. Because a cluttered space often reflects a cluttered mind. And most importantly, protect your peace like a treasure. Don't allow every person, every event, every noise, or every conversation to occupy space in your mind. When you change your environment, even a little, you will see your thoughts begin to change on their own. Not because the mind suddenly became perfect, but because it finally got the space, the energy, and the atmosphere it needed to breathe. And when the mind can breathe, it can heal, it can grow, it can become beautifully, naturally, effortlessly positive. My friends, there is a very simple truth that we often forget. A mind filled with gratitude has no space left for negativity. Just like darkness cannot exist in the presence of light, negativity cannot survive in a heart that practices genuine thankfulness. But gratitude is not just saying thank you, it is a way of seeing life, a way of feeling life, a way of interpreting everything that happens to you. Most people don't lack blessings, They lack awareness of those blessings. We wake up every morning, open our eyes, see the world, take a breath, stand on our feet, hold a cup of water, walk, talk, laugh, eat, and we take all of it for granted. Until one day, life takes something away. Only then we realize it was never small. Gratitude is the art of noticing the miracles that disguise themselves as ordinary moments. Let me tell you a small story. A man once met a monk and said, "I am tired of negative thinking. Nothing good happens in my life." The monk smiled and told him, "Take this paper and write down everything you have lost." The man thought for a while and said, "I haven't lost much, but I can't think of anything good either." The monk then handed him another paper and said, "No, write everything you have that others are praying for." The man began writing, "My family, my health, food, a home, eyes to see, hands to work, legs to walk, a mind to think, opportunities, friends, dreams." He wrote and wrote and wrote until tears fell from his eyes. He whispered, "I never realized I had so much because I was too busy focusing on what I didn't have." My friends, that is what negative thinking does. It blinds us to abundance. It convinces us that life is empty, even when it is overflowing with gifts. Gratitude is not about ignoring your problems. It's about refusing to let your problems overshadow your blessings. Every morning you have two choices: focus on the problem or focus on the possibility. Gratitude pushes your mind toward possibility. When you begin your day by acknowledging what's good, your nervous system relaxes, your thoughts calm down, your heart opens, and your mind becomes stronger. And slowly, negative thinking starts losing its grip. You can try it yourself. Before going to bed, sit quietly and list 3 things you are grateful for. Not big things, but small ones: a peaceful evening, a warm meal, a good conversation, a lesson learned, a moment of laughter. This simple act rewires your brain. Science now confirms what ancient wisdom always taught. Gratitude literally strengthens the pathways in the brain responsible for positivity, stability, and resilience. It is like adding fresh water to a dirty glass. The more you pour in, the more the dirt gets diluted. The more gratitude you pour into your mind, the more negativity gets washed away. You see, when you complain, your mind becomes heavy. When you are grateful, your mind becomes light. When you complain, you magnify problems. When you are grateful, you magnify blessings. When you complain, you lose peace. When you are grateful, peace comes running back. Gratitude turns what you have into enough, and what you are into more than enough. But here is the most beautiful part. Gratitude changes your emotional climate. A grateful heart is calm. A grateful mind is clear. A grateful person sees beauty where others see flaws, possibility where others see limitations, and lessons where others see failures. Negativity cannot grow in such soil. It slowly dies out because the emotional environment no longer supports it. Gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a shield. A shield that protects your mind from unnecessary comparisons, jealousy, fear, and self-doubt. Practice gratitude long enough, and you will notice something magical. You start complaining less, appreciating more, fearing less, trusting more, worrying less, and living more. Because the heart that remembers to say thank you cannot remain negative. When you train your mind to see what's right before reacting to what's wrong, negativity loses its power over you. And that, my friends, is how gratitude becomes one of the strongest medicines for killing negative thinking forever. My friends, one of the most powerful ways to kill negative thinking forever is to master the art of reframing, changing the way you interpret what happens to you. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. But most of us don't see it that way because our mind has been trained to interpret every challenge as a threat, every delay as a failure, every mistake as a weakness.